Hey guys, and welcome back to The Controversial Mom. I'm your host, Emily Jones. And I know I talked about AI last week, and I'm going to stick on that topic at least through this week. I don't know. I may continue a little longer. It just depends on how much more I uncover. But I talked a lot about AI last week, specifically around companion AI. And I'm going to stay a little bit on that thread in terms of AI and how it impacts our kids. But I'm shifting gears completely and talking about AI in education, because what I'm learning about AI in education is absolutely terrifying. And we as parents need to be very much aware of what's happening or could potentially happen. So before I get into the weeds on all that, let me take a couple of steps back and kind of explain how we got to where we are and where we're headed. So earlier this year in April, Trump signed the Advancing Artificial Intelligence Education for American Youth executive order. And basically, it did a whole lot of things, but the thing that you need to know is that it pushes AI into every single classroom all across the country, K through 12. It's very broad. And we all know that Trump's very focused on AI and wants America to lead on the AI front. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But when it comes to putting AI into classrooms, I have massive amounts of reservations, as I think most people do. Because if we take a step back and look at kind of what's happened in the past 20 years in terms of technology and us putting it in the hands of our kids, I think we can all agree that that probably wasn't the best idea. We didn't know then what we know now, so we need to handle this differently. We can all agree that kids having cell phones and access to social media as young as 11 is really detrimental. And that's proven when we look at the statistics behind the amount of kids these days that are suffering from mental health issues and the amount of suicidal ideation that permeates our youth. So we know that this stuff is bad. We need to address AI very differently because we know a lot more now than we knew 20 years ago. Not to mention, a lot of the organizations that are hopping on board this AI and education thing are not good people. And we're going to talk about that in depth today. So if you're not tracking the whole AI and education thing, or just AI in general from Trump's standpoint, you can Google the executive orders. He signed, I think, 3 of them dealing with various parts of AI. He also has a website, ai.gov, very easy to figure out. Go look at it. There's not a whole lot on the website, which tells you how early we are in this process of AI. Like, the website's not overly helpful in terms of content that it's got out there. The executive orders are much more robust than the website. That's how early we are in the process of AI. But for the purposes of today's conversation, I want to focus on a couple of the AI and education partners. So basically what happened, Trump started pushing AI in education. He started getting a lot of companies on board to help with this. And it's a very broad list of organizations. Some of them are groups like Moms for Liberty, which are advocating for AI in education. Maybe advocating is the wrong word. They're getting a seat at the table to talk about how we do it safely. And then you've got companies like Hewlett-Packard, Dell, like all these, technology companies that are obviously pushing it. Then we have big tech. We've got Google that's helping. We've got, I can't even remember some of the names right now. But the ones that caused me greatest concern when I started looking at this list were social media companies. So we all know social media, it truly is the rot of our society. It's destroyed our ability to have conversations with people. We just get on AI, become keyboard warrior, or not AI. We get on social media. We become keyboard warriors. We attack people and we walk away. No harm, no foul, right? It's destroyed our ability as a society to have civil conversations. But now we're pushing these same social media companies into our classrooms, all under the guise of educating our children. And I've got major issues with that. And I think once we talk through some of the things that I've discovered, a lot more people are going to have these same concerns that I have. So let's start with the one that everybody's familiar with, and that's Meta. Facebook and Instagram, right? Like, most of us have one or both of these social media platforms, and we spend a lot of time on it. Unfortunately, most people do. Again, it's why I say it's the rot of our society. But for the terms of AI in education, why Meta is such a massive issue. They have multiple lawsuits against them. And I'm going to reference my notes a lot today because we're talking about big tech and we're talking about legal allegations. So I'm going to make sure that I reference my notes very, very closely because all of this is documented in various articles. So I don't want to get sued. I don't need Right Side Media getting sued. So I'm going to be very cautious and look at my notes a lot. So documented issues with Meta when it comes to legal allegations. There are multiple allegations and litigation against Meta dealing with their AI chatbot. This impacts AI in education directly, right? Because it's all about AI. The AI chatbot within Meta is accused of, and I will be very cautious and say that the lawsuit, to my knowledge, is still ongoing, so they're accused of this. Nothing has been proven in a court of law, and they've not been found guilty just yet. But they have been accused of allowing their AI chatbot to have romantic and sensual conversations with minors. And it's also been allowed to provide medical and health-related content or push content to children. Now, this is where it gets really concerning. They knew it did. There's a report by Reuters where they got a copy of the internal policy regarding the AI chatbot pushing this kind of content to minors, and Facebook did nothing about it. I should say Meta did nothing about it. It wasn't until they started getting massive amounts of scrutiny that they actually addressed the issue. So Meta knew that their AI chatbot was having sensual conversations with minors and allowed it to continue. They knew that it was pushing medical content to kids and they allowed it to continue. Now, one thing I think we all know and we've experienced is the advertising push on Facebook. I use Facebook more than anything and I hate it. So I'm going to use Facebook versus Meta. I can sit there and talk to somebody about, I really want to go find a pink sweatshirt. And before I know it, my feed on Facebook starts pushing advertisements for pink sweatshirts. We've all seen it. Now imagine you're a child and you make a comment to the chatbot about how you're lonely and you're upset and you just don't feel like anybody gets you. Can you imagine the ads that are then going to start feeding into a minor's social media feed? It's terrifying. And all of this is going to happen with a parent right there, and a parent's going to go, yeah, I'm aware of Facebook. Like, it's fine. My kid's on it. And they're not going to think twice about this. Facebook knew that this was happening and did nothing about it until they were forced to because of public scrutiny. Now, all of that's bad. It's very bad. But then there's even more. Facebook has been sued by a group out of Europe. I want to say it's like 28 different consumer groups. I could have the number wrong, but it was a lot. It wasn't like 3 or 4. It was a lot. It was double digits. That I know. Because of massive illegal data collection. And I know when we start getting into data collection, that loses a lot of people because, quite frankly, we're just kind of accustomed to it. We know that it happens. We know that there's, this massive level of surveillance about geolocating on our phone and all that. And we've sadly just become very accustomed to it and think nothing about it. But here's where the issue with Meta becomes much more sinister when we're talking about them gaining access to kids in classrooms. This particular situation. So the amount of data that they illegally collected was so vast that the allegation, again, being careful, the allegation says that users could not meaningfully consent due to the scale of data that they were collecting. Like, it was so much more than what we typically talk about with your likes, your dislikes, where you're going, the food you want to eat. It was so much broader than that. And it was so intimate and personal that Facebook Meta then used the data to infer your emotional state, your sexual identity, and this one's weird, your addiction vulnerability. Now, I say that's weird, but that also feeds back into their platform design where they reel you in They reel kids in, they figure out what they like, and they constantly adjust the feed so that kids stay on the platform for hours upon hours upon hours. We've all fell victim to that when we get on social media for one or two little things, and before you know it, an hour's gone by and you've scrolled through a bunch of crap and wasted an hour of your life. That is where this addiction vulnerability comes in. It started to predict how likely it was to keep people further addicted to their platform, because the longer you're on it, the more they make off of you. You are nothing more than a product to them. You make money for them. So if they can determine which person is more likely to have an addiction vulnerability, then they know how much or who to target to stay on there more. That's how sick this company is. But again, they used your personal data to predict your emotional state and your sexual identity. Now, take what I just said and think about kids in the classroom. When we're trying to keep our kids off of social media at home, then they go to school and they've got AI and education being shoved down their throats. And of course, schools are going to use the tools and the systems the White House is signing off on. Why would they not? They've got to be safe. They're going to use what's provided to them because the teachers aren't experts on AI. They've got to leverage something. So they're going to use the tools that are given to them. So they're going to pull up whatever it is that Meta's putting together and stick it in front of your kid, not knowing any better. And they're going to collect mountains of data off of your kids without your consent. And they're going to sit there and predict your child's mental state, their sexual identity, all of it. And the parent has no clue that it's happening. Crap, the teacher's not going to know that this is happening. The superintendent's not going to know. Nobody's going to know because none of us have access to the algorithms that are feeding this to our kids. But that's who's getting access to our kids in AI and education. So then let's go to the next one, because I promise you these only get worse as I go. I'm furious over this, mind you, and I hope that everybody else is equally as furious when I get through with this. So the next one is Snap. So it's the parent company of Snapchat. They've got a couple of other platforms. I can't remember what they are. Snap is really the company that's being litigated all across the country, so we'll just kind of go with that. So Snap being sued by multiple states, not people within states. I mean, that also is happening. But actual state attorney generals have filed lawsuits against Snapchat or Snap because of the very disturbing platform that they have created for children. On top, or let me list these out. The ones that I listed, the actual states, and there's a couple of more that have filed litigation, and then there's a couple of more that have posed questions to Snap in anticipation of filing a lawsuit. So my list is not all inclusive, I should say. Kansas, New Mexico, and Utah have all filed litigation against Snap because the platform, oh gosh, y'all, these are so bad. It exposes minors to drugs and weapons. They have documented where Snap has been used to buy and sell drugs, to buy and sell weapons. Keep that in mind. It has been used for sexual exploitation of minors. And then, same as all of these, really and truly, it's going to be the compulsive use, that they're designed to constantly do updates and, feeds that keep kids on this platform for hours. Because again, the longer a kid's on there, the more money they make, because they don't care about your kid's safety. They care about making money. So the issues with Snap are pretty bad. Then on top of that, the Federal Trade Commission filed a complaint with the DOJ. I think it was in January of this year. January of 2025. And typically, when the FTC does something like that, it's not public. They keep it private. They do the investigations, whatever. And it's at the end of it that, kind of something comes out. But this was where things took a very, very wild turn. The FTC came out and announced that they had referred this to the DOJ specifically for the Snapchat or the AI chatbot function within Snapchat. And they wouldn't go any further in terms of what it was, but they just said parents, the public, need to know that there are very massive concerns with this chatbot. That's why we're telling the public that we referred this to the DOJ. We can't go beyond that, but you all need to be aware. And that's kind of the end of it. I've not seen anything beyond that they filed the complaint. There has been nothing in the news that I've seen. I Googled it, tried to find updates. There's nothing. So a year ago, the FTC pushed this forward to the DOJ saying, hey, there's massive concerns with this chatbot. Y'all need to launch an investigation. And it has been radio silent ever since then. But that should be a very massive concern for every parent out there. They have removed, there was a couple of features in there that Snap did remove. It dealt with like the social media challenges. So like I'll give them credit for that. They did recognize after some kids died that they should probably remove some of these features, which they then did. And here's the really bad part with the Snapchat or the Snap AI portion of this. The things that are happening in that app, buying and selling drugs, buying and selling weapons, sexual exploitation of minors, whatever is going on with this weird AI chatbot that none of us know the details on, what they committed to the Trump administration when it comes to AI in education, they committed to developing an in-app AI education for teens dealing with more or less online safety. I'm paraphrasing the last part, but that's all it is. I mean, that's what it is. They've committed to developing an in-app, meaning your child has to use the app to get access to this training about online AI safety of minors. The irony is not lost on me that the company that has been referred to the DOJ because of their in-app chatbot is so vile and dangerous to children now wants access to our kids in the classroom? Who was signing off on these partnerships? I really need to know because I've got some major questions for them. Then the last one that I'm going to go over today, Roblox. Everybody's heard about Roblox if you've got kids because your kids are using Roblox. My son's on it way more than he needs to be. We've had lots of conversations and he assures me that he's safe and I'm blowing things out of proportion. Roblox is dangerous because it allows kids to connect with whoever that they want. There's no filter in there of so you can block somebody or you have to be a friend and know there's nothing. They can have whatever conversations they want. I do think that they have blocked the feature to send photos because I've had conversations with my son about that and he's assured me it's just texting. You can't do photos. So that's a relief. But the allegations against Roblox are equally as concerning because you've got multiple states that have also filed lawsuits against Roblox. Texas, Tennessee, and Kentucky have all filed lawsuits against them. Now, that's a completely different set of states that I mentioned earlier. So we're not talking overlapping allegations here. These are completely separate. Separate companies, separate states, separate everything. The issue of Roblox is that it allows predators to groom children because anybody can text you. Anybody can send you a private message. So they can send whatever they want. They've knowingly misled parents about safety protocols on the platform. And then this was the one that I found most recently that was highly disturbing. So this is not a state level lawsuit. This was an individual family that filed a lawsuit against Roblox. One of the lawsuits was out of Iowa, who claims that her 13-year-old daughter, now they're in Iowa, 13-year-old daughter was found in Tennessee after being taken from her grandmother's home and sexually abused by a person she met on Roblox in the chat room. So I don't know the full context of how this person found the 13-year-old, but Roblox allowed this adult to contact a minor because, again, it's not like you have to be friends to then be able to send a chat. They can just send you a chat. And these people somehow got connected to this 13-year-old. She, I'm assuming, revealed her location because she thinks it's a kid, I'm sure, thinks nothing of it, and then they kidnap her and take her across state lines and sexually abuse her. That's Roblox. That's the company that wants to do game-based learning around AI for our kids in the classroom. They want to create tools around AI for our kids to use in the classroom. The same companies, the same platforms that don't give a crap about our kids in the marketplace because they're nothing but products to them that make money, now want full access to our kids in the classroom, all under the guise of educating our kids. Parents need to be very concerned about AI in general. You need to be very concerned about the AI tools that your schools are about to be given to put in the classroom. And this is not a knock on public schools. They're going to do what they've got to do to remain compliant with executive orders from the government. I get that. And they're going to use the tools that are handed to them for free because all of this is free, right? Every company is going to pony up millions of dollars of tools and platforms and training for no reason, right? Of course not. No, they're all getting massive amounts of data on our kids on the background. They're going to get their payday. We all know that for sure. So if you're a parent with a child in public school, I implore you to start asking questions about what tools are being used in the classroom now and what they're doing to get more tools in the future. Because you need to start looking into this. You need to know what's being put in front of your kid on a daily basis in general, but also when it comes to AI. Because this stuff is coming faster than any of us realize. And I don't know that there's any safety checks in place. So it's up to you, parents, to fill the gap until we can figure out some regulation around this, because your kids are going to be exposed to some very sinister stuff. And our teachers are not going to know that it's happening. The principals are not. The superintendents are not. The system's not going to know that it's happening because it's coming so fast and they can't keep up. So I implore you, parents, start asking questions and know exactly what is happening when it comes to AI and education. Because your kids are going to be exposed to stuff that you will never be able to remove from their memory. You need to make sure that they're safe. So sorry to end on such a very heavy note, but this is very serious and I want to make sure that people know about it and that you're asking questions and you're doing everything you can to protect your kids. If you have questions on it, let me know. It's very simple. Just go Google AI and education. Go Google any of these companies that I brought up today. You'll be able to find it because it's very, very obvious. It's very, very well-known stuff. I didn't have to dig into a very dark hole to find any of it. It's very much in the headlines. So go check it out. Make sure you're informed and do everything you can to help prevent your kids from being exposed to the dangers that AI is presenting. As always, guys, thanks for joining, and I'll see you next week.